Welcome to AI in Focus. AI in Focus is a podcast exploring how thoughtful people can show up as our best selves in a world shaped by AI. We talk to founders, creators, and operators, and we uncover ways to work smarter. And I'm excited because we have Hiten Shah here today. He's a serial entrepreneur, the CEO of Crazy Egg, and co-founder of Kissmetrics and Nira. You can find his hot takes on AI and growth and SaaS products at hiten.com. That link will be in the show notes, and his SaaS weekly newsletters. Hiten, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah. I've got a bunch of newsletters over the years. It's actually called Product Habits now at producthabits.com. But even on my main domain, and again, this is super relevant. I recently, maybe 3-4 weeks ago, so my main domain is now Hiten.com because I happen to have my first name.com, which is dope, right? I was so excited when I got it a while ago. And basically, what I'm doing there is weekly free AI sessions. And the reason I'm doing it is because people kept asking me, and I was so deep in doing all this stuff, I didn't really come up for air or want to talk about it like everyone else was. But every time I see a random open source repo, I'll go check it out, hit the bots with it, and see what's up. So yeah, ready to dive in, Stephen.
Very cool. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of stuff I did OpenClaw, did a lot of co-work, and so we'll get into some of the detailed work use cases in a little bit, but I wanted to ask you kind of big questions first. We hear a lot about NVIDIA, Oracle, OpenAI, so many companies out there. Is AI the snake eating its own tail right now? Are we in an AI bubble, or do you not think so?
I would honestly say that it's not. I think it's tough to take the moment that we're in right now and put a label to it, when the moment right now versus the moment in a day or two or a week could be very different than right now. So I'll give my personal example of this is because of my usage of AI, I was using different products, mostly ChatGPT, first Claude, then ChatGPT. Now things are very different, but I actually loved Claude initially.
Okay.
And then they, as a product, they didn't iterate the product as well as I would have liked back then. And I think the answer of why is very clear, is they were so focused on coding and the APIs, and meaning the coding use cases. Good for them, because it obviously has paid off. But I was trying to use their consumer product that they weren't investing in. I don't know if you recall, but at some point they switched from the design and layout they had to one that looks more like ChatGPT.
Yeah.
That's when I realized they're getting more serious about it. Not because it looked like ChatGPT at all in that sense. It was actually the reasoning behind that for me was they're starting to understand the consumer paradigms better and what we as consumers get familiar with and want to use. So Grok looks like that, ChatGPT looks like that, Claude looks like that. So my usage was pretty high in all those areas. And then kind of all these sort of new things like OpenClaw and other things started showing up. I think OpenClaw in particular opened my eyes, and that completely just changed how I think about all of this stuff.
So you don't think it's a bubble? I mean, the biggest question a lot of people have is, will this be figured out to be a consumer product that normal people actually use? I listen to Nilay on The Verge and Decoder, and, AI companies, they're dumping billions of dollars. We have chatbots now. But if you look back to the early days of the internet, the use cases back then, which was maybe sending emails to each other, much different than today, where the internet powers things like Uber and DoorDash. Do you think we're seeing anything close to what the consumer product will be now, or do we need to wait 5-10 years before we can figure out, or when companies can figure out how to use it?
I think this goes back to the bubble question, right? And it goes back to what usage we're seeing today versus what we might see in the future. So for example, if last week things were different than this week, are we in a bubble? Because things are different. So my point is I got so much exposure, especially with the kind of last job I had, which was my first job in my life. I had so much exposure to AI fairly early, but not the kind where it's a researcher or a lab or anything like that. It's actually trying to figure out how to use AI and make it practical. So the last time, and I'm sharing all this because I think the context is super important, because what I would say versus a bubble, I would say it a little differently and say we are in the middle of a gap. And the gap, we don't know how long it's going to be, but the gap is pre-AI and post AI. And so if you start looking at certain things, some things are now post AI, other things are still pre AI, even though AI exists. And then there's a degree of how far we're going. So I would say that that's like saying like all the investment that went into the railroads or the cars back in the day was a bubble, which from a technical, you look at it, I'm sure someone could do the math, or out there, I haven't. It was a bubble. But what is a bubble? A ton of investment going somewhere without current existing realized value of that investment, right? Now, all these companies were buying up the RAM, buying up the GPUs. Now we have a RAM and GPU shortage. You can't find a 512 gigabyte RAM Mac Studio anywhere. I ordered one on February 7th. It's still not here. Today is April 1st, so it's April, right? And I ordered it from Expertcom, and I did it the right way. You don't just go to Apple and order it because it's a different problem, right? Yeah. Because it's a custom build Mac Studio, basically, when you have 512 gigs of RAM. So now I actually have 3 on order, okay? I'm not crazy, I promise. And the reason I do those is going to go get back to your question. I believe that the reason it feels like a bubble is because some of these companies realized what I personally realized and decided to order 3 Mac Studios, which is that if we're dependent on the AI, then we should get as much of that AI in our hands as possible. And I believe the data center build out, all these things psychologically are related to, maybe you can call it FOMO, maybe you want to say it's resulted in a bubble, which is an overinflated value for certain things. But I'm not really sure if it's overinflated, if there truly is a GPU memory shortage. Apple's not even able to sell their highest end machine, period. You go ask employees, not that I know any, so Apple, don't get mad, security folks. The highest they have there, and this is from multiple sources, is 256 gigabytes internally that they can buy. They can't even buy the 512 as an employee internally, which means it no longer probably is available, period. Right?
Okay. So you're saying like local LLM, you're betting on like, if this is so important, I need to have models in my house, in my office being run where I'm not dependent on servers in the cloud somewhere? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not Elon. I'm not Mark Zuckerberg. I'm not the Google founders or folks, executives over there that made the decision a year ago, 18 months ago, maybe longer, to go invest in data center stuff. Right? I just say it lightly because that's, we could get more complicated about the chips, the GPUs, the networking, and all that stuff, but that's like in the weeds. So my equivalent is just machines in my house that I'm trying to figure out, how can I get them to run the local models? How can I do fine tuning locally? How can I get the things that I want sort of sorted out? Like what is a what there for me? And what I've realized is even a Mac Mini with 16 gigabytes of RAM can do quite a bit locally. And now with all the tricks, Turbo Quant, a bunch of stuff, supposedly we can do even more. Now, when you dig in, there's some nuances, like the quality of the model. Maybe they're just optimizing for tokens per second with a lot of these tricks, things like that. So I think the TLDR, because you asked, I think, a question that folks want to answer, and they will probably want to just say yes. And I would say, like, I don't know if that's the way we should be describing this. I think, but the manifestation of it and the understanding of it and the description of it, of a bubble, totally makes sense. It is a bubble. What is a bubble? Overvalued. Things are overvalued and nobody cares. Like, that's kind of where we're at, right? Like, you're looking at OpenAI, but like on the ground, even when I was at Dropbox, where I sold my company to them and worked there, I was an individual contributor and I got to use AI. I got to be part of the ChatGPT rollout that they had. And I worked with the IT team. I was on the AI council. Like, there's no way that this gap I'm talking about does not exist. Like, and that gap, I think, is what we're talking about when we talk about bubbles. Okay. I don't think we're talking about bubbles. I think we're talking about that gap of pre-AI to whatever post-AI looks like.
Yeah, and I also hear people saying regular consumers don't use it. And it's like, honestly, I see a lot of regular people, including my own family, that will ask ChatGPT things like how to resolve conflict. People are finding all kinds of use cases. But I'm curious what you think about AI burnout headlines. And I don't know if you've seen the memes where a lot of people in the corporate world are sharing it, where it's like the employers and managers pouring AI down the throats of the employees, wanting them to use it more and more to get more done. Do you think that we're actually feeling that cognitive overload? Are people feeling like AI burnout?
if you're not using AI enough, then you will not feel that burnout. So if you're using AI quite a bit, you're going to feel that burnout. And the burnout, I think I've read a lot of the articles about this. There's some psychology related things that are coming out about it. But I'm gonna give you a little bit of a switch frame on this one and say that in the past, and I'm a founder. I'm a serial founder. I've owned, whatever you want to call it, cereal box. So I've only done this stuff since I was about 4 or 5 years old. I think it's 4 years old. My dad told me I should be an entrepreneur. So I just wanted to share that context coming into this. So pre-AI, I was already very good at context switching and a bunch of other things that are related to that. Just because it's like my bias. Like I really enjoy being able to switch context. And I'm talking like completely different topics very rapidly. Like some of the densest conversations I have are with friends of mine who are kind of like, we look back at the half hour and we're like, how many things did we talk about in a half hour? Right. And I'm sure that might happen even here. So folks, hopefully you're following along, but Stephen will keep me honest. So I think context switching is something most people aren't used to. And I don't mean context in the AI sense like that. More like, hey, you're able to take one topic and then switch to another and have no baggage from the previous one if it's unrelated and be able to attack that thing. And if you think about great executives, managers and leaders and folks like that, they end up basically having to do that all day. A founder, you have to do that on steroids. And so I got used to that. So for me, my threshold for, let's say, this AI burnout might be a little bit higher. And that's why I have a bunch of different bots running around. You know, one of the reasons to name them is because then they have purpose, or they can sit in your head better. I think that's a better, that's why I named them. There's a bunch of other reasons like identity and things I'm testing. But so I guess like overall, what I would say is that folks that are great at context switching are having a much easier time, but we're still hitting those limits.
I also, when you say, I know you're saying context switching like topic wise, but I do think there's the other implication there of context switching where if you're using chatbots and other AI alongside your normal work, you are literally having to switch from I'm writing here and I'm going to send a prompt over here so it can give me recommendations, and now I'm going to leave that aside and I'm going to go back to my original work. So there is both the topic switching and also in your mind, can you mentally grasp doing things over here and then letting robots run and things over here? Do you think that's part of the challenge too?
I solved that.
How's that?
The second OpenClaw came out, I looked for a few days and saw what people were doing with it. The majority of people were focused on putting it on a computer and essentially helping it manage their email. Maybe the most productive thing was like helping send outbound email, right? If they're doing sales and things like that, or manage my schedule, or manage this or that. I'm totally aware of the pain and problems in those areas and how us as humans waste a lot of time in those areas, or some people believe that. So this is not to shit on anybody using it for that. I actually have some experiments there because I have friends who want to use it for that stuff. I've been helping them. But I shoved it into Slack as the first thing. In fact, an engineer on one of the teams I work on, it's a very small team. It's actually just me and him at the time. He put it in Slack. And he put it in Slack off a computer he had. But him and I both knew we were putting it in there so we could use it for work. And so we decided that, put it in Slack. Then, since then, the first thing I actually did was not put it on my computer. I put it on a VPS. And then I basically, which is a virtual private server, which is in the cloud. It's basically just fancy for saying it's in the cloud. And not AWS, something a lot more consumer friendly, like a hosting company. And so I signed up, put it on there, set it up there, and then right away shoved it into a Slack. And once I did that, those things of the switching costs, because you're basically referring to the app switching costs. And I'm a little dangerous here because I studied, like the last company I started sold to IT and security teams. And so app switching costs, number of apps in the company, all these things were like things that I've been thinking about a lot. And because the customer I was dealing with thought about that a lot. Hey, we have too many apps. Are people using them, right? The other angle of this. So I think long story long there, it's like there are solutions to this if you're conscious that these are going to be problems that come up. My ultimate solution is put it in Slack. And then it's sitting where the work happens. At least that's what Slack wants us to believe, right? That's where the work happens.
Right. Well, and that's what Claude Cowork is trying to do now, where with all the connectors, even MCP's first party and third party, putting the AI where you work. But I'm curious, even before we started hitting record, you seemed pretty anti using AI for productivity type work, including email, where people spend a lot of time in email. And I think part of the thought is donkey work or just kind of regular work, the tedious tasks I do. Why can't AI do that? So how are you putting those kinds of tasks in the tedious task and AI shouldn't do it or should, or how do you separate that for your own workflow?
Well, first of all, on my main inbox, I've been using SaneBox for over 10 years. I think it's over 10. It must be by now. They've been around quite a while. So that, not for this to be an advertisement, but like that makes it so I already had something running, and that wasn't AI back then. I don't know how it's running now, but it just works, and I don't have to think about it. And essentially, it's auto sorting and ensuring that I see the right stuff and I don't see anything that I don't need to see or whatever. If I review the rules, I can do some things. I'm sure they'll add some more AI, but it's a product that just got out of the way. And my concern, the real concern about email productivity and these things, is are we just putting the product in the way? And I think we are. And so then it's like, okay, are there different interfaces or different things? So for example, there's a product called Poke. I think it's poke.com. Very interesting product. I keep it on. I negotiated with the bot to get my price. It's like $10 a month or something. Some people got lower. I was kind of annoyed, but they were trying to charge us like $100 a month. And now you can even renegotiate the price on renewal. It's a very interesting product. But on top of SaneBox, it makes sure that I get alerted of things that are super critical and timely. If SaneBox added that, I'd be super stoked, but this thing is in text message and it's a bot. So it's not to say that I think these things shouldn't be used for email productivity. I just think that we're wasting our time trying to use them for email productivity if we're trying to self-optimize these things for our own email productivity, when for that use case, there are tools out there, there are things out there. Let someone else solve that problem, unless you're worried about security or something like that. That being said, one of the first things I did, like within the first week of these bots in there, is I had the bots build themselves sort of a bot contact database. I took 2 of my email addresses, exported my LinkedIn, took my Twitter, shoved it all in there with a system I manage and control. But I wasn't trying to go send outbound email. I was just trying to say, hey, like right now I'm building a competitive intelligence tool at one of my companies, and it's early-ish in terms of the product, longer in terms of our thinking around it. And I need to go talk to product marketing managers, so PMMs. Those are the core people that deal with competitive intelligence as a category and a function in the company. They're usually hitting the brunt of it, them and user researchers. So then what I could do now, because I have all that in there, who do I know that's a PMM? I don't know where I can ask that question and get it answered. Now, optimize my email or make sure my priority emails get to me. There's answers for that. I don't need to, and it's not even a reinventing the wheel sort of thing whatsoever. That's not where my head is, although a lot of people think, oh, you don't like reinventing the wheel. No, I'm all for reinventing the wheel. Look, I just built a contact database, but I didn't know any other way I could get that, and now all these services let me export my data. Right? And it's my data. It's sitting on my servers, whether it's my computer or my machines, not in some cloud, which again is a little bit of an asterisk of a value prop for most people. But the control I get because it's sitting there and my contact database can be improved by me. The bots can write the code to improve it. If I say, hey, find me the PMMs, it will write the script or whatever to go into the database and go get that answer. Sometimes I'll even say, or in this case, expansion of that contact database would be making it so I can literally quickly prompt it and get answers like what I said, which is what I realized when I started prompting it. Hey, I should be doing embeddings locally and all these other fancy things. And it's helped a lot because it gets me the answers quicker and it contextualizes every single person I know.
I'm curious, are you running OpenClaw on your main machines like all the time? Full permissions?
I will not run OpenClaw on any main machine that I actually do my work on, log into Slack as a human. So my main machine has no fancy stuff. It is not even a fancy computer.
Not even Cowork?
So short answer, no. Longer answer is Cowork is awesome. It has messed up a lot of stuff for a lot of people very easily, and it also burns tokens. And even when talking with folks at Anthropic, like, this is just not their focus. Like co-work is their focus. Enterprise is their focus from what we can tell. So is code. Consumer isn't, but they're making improvements there. So when you just look at these companies, even though I think Anthropic is more focused than OpenAI, and I don't know if that's good or bad, like, no judgment. Like, it's tough to run a company at those scales, especially, and even operate in one. But like, they're focused on making their models the best for code. Everyone seems to be very hyper-focused on that because they've all learned a few reasons why that's important. We don't need to get into that. And so my issue with Cowork is simply it burns tokens too fast. That's like number one issue. Second issue is if I try to get my coworkers to use it, they're confused and then I have to provide a tutorial for them, which again, like, fine. And then worst thing is just it will mess something up on my main machine if I let it. How do I not let it? Well, it hallucinates because it's an AI. So it's not a knock at all on the fact that that capability exists or Cowork is pretty awesome as a tool. But with great power comes great responsibility. Right. And so that's why I don't run OpenClaws on my main machine. I don't go mess around with open source projects on my main machine beyond whatever already comes from the machine because I need the machine to do things like this. And if I'm tinkering with it, things like this won't work. For all I know, because I mess with video and other things a lot, it would mess up my browser if I mess with it too much, right? And it can. It really can. Yeah. So I love Cowork for what it is. I use it. I use Claude Code, but I really like the things that are more work oriented. Claude Code is not. I think it's work oriented for an engineer. That's why I love that they built Cowork. But I have to say that like the guardrails don't exist, and I'm not really sure how enterprise is dealing with that right now.
Yeah, so I'm actually with you. So I use Sanebox as well, and I thought for a second, let me get Claude Cowork to try and do something here. I installed a custom MCP from not Anthropic, but from a third-party developer on GitHub. I think it was Mad Llama. And just 3 minutes in, I was like, you know what? No, I don't want AI just running free in my own email. And so I'll trust Sanebox with my fast mail and just leave that alone. I do use Cowork sometimes, but I'm curious. So you don't run OpenClaw or Cowork on your main machines. Email is not an AI use case. What other places do you intentionally not use AI because either you think the work is important to have the human touch or because you just don't trust it there just yet?
I'm going to give you a fun one. The other day, this was a few weeks ago, I wanted to write instructions on going, adding a VPS all the way to get it in Slack. Even a couple weeks ago, I did a live AI session where it's 10 minutes to a bot in Slack off of a VPS to there. Fairly straightforward if you've tried this, but there's a lot of nuances. I made all those instructions by hand. No AI involved. Because it was fun.
Okay, all right.
And I wanted to go in and find the nuances that I don't think AI is very good at finding about how to install. As you were saying, can I get an AI to actually give me instructions on how to sign up for a VPS all the way to get the bot in Slack? How many tools are we switching between? I have computer use and other things on my machines, and I play around with that a lot. It's not that great yet. As in, it'll hallucinate, it'll trip up, it needs all the scaffolding around it to check everything. That's why when people say, it can do this, I'm like, show me. Just show me. And every time it's like, it messes up, right? Maybe you get lucky once and then it messes up. The first thing I did with Cowork was take a folder with a bunch of files in it. The first thing, and it was a bunch of vacation photos specifically. And these are not use cases I get excited about, but use cases that are good for testing. And it was just all the, whatever, DM, whatever the file format is. I'm not a photographer, but everyone knows the DSC or whatever it is. It names it Y. But anyway. Yeah. And so then I backed up the folder. So I copied it, put it somewhere else. Then I had Claude Cowork go after it and say, organize it, analyze the photos into structures, be logical, whatever. It gave me some options because, Cowork with the wizard is really freaking cool. I know I'm both ways on Anthropic and Claude and all these things, but like, there's a lot of great things. They figure out a lot of stuff, but there's just too much to do. More bubble talk. But basically, it burned through my tokens before it was done. It got like 86% done, and it's like, you don't have any more. You're going to have to wait. And I'm like, all I did was take these few hundred photos.
So that's half the memes on the internet now too. It's like coders waiting for 5 p.m. when their tokens refresh because Claude just burns through it.
I can't tell you how many accounts I have.
Because you can only pay for Max once a month.
Can't tell you how many accounts I have, right? Because I don't know, maybe. And it's tough because like Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
I'm happy to use the GPUs for cheap if I can.
Gotcha. Well, so let me ask you this. If someone's listening and maybe they're not into all the AI tools yet and they're trying to figure out where to start,
Yeah.
I know for me, on my home screen, it was ChatGPT probably 6 months ago, and then it changed to Gemini back in January, and now I'm feeling like switching out Gemini for Claude on my iPhone home screen. So, I think us on the edge, we're just kind of whatever's the best, whatever's the coolest right now. But if someone's starting out, they've not used SaneBox or ChatGPT or anything, well, how would you say someone gets started to actually make AI useful for them?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't met anyone that doesn't at least use it like Google today, right? So I think if you're not using it, just go there and try to use it for Google. ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity, just use it for what you would use Google for.
Not Gemini?
Well, Gemini too. All of anyone, any flavor you want.
Okay.
Right? It's just ice cream. They're all ice cream, different flavors. Some people like certain flavors. Some people like others. They give you a new flavor when the new model comes out.
True.
It's still the same code though. So that's my analogy there. So yeah, I don't care what flavor you pick the flavor because they all work the same. They might not have different capabilities when you nuance it, but overall they work the same. So, the easiest trick for anyone to do is take a query, any kind. One, maybe a question you'd ask in Google is a good one. Put it in all of them that you have access to. And just see what you like.
Right.
See how it does. See how Perplexity does, all that. So my first training wheels, use it like Google first so that you can learn what the difference is between Google and these things. And yeah, Google has their AI thing and all that. So use Google, check that out. Use that one too, on google.com. But then you should use Gemini for it and other things and just see how you feel about it. So that's step one. I think step two is I use this analogy quite a bit. And maybe it's not that great. Maybe it is. I don't know. But I'm going to keep using it, which is basically the way ChatGPT evolved is I think how is what helped me get to this analogy, which is a car is a tool. So let's say ChatGPT is that car, a tool. And they gave us the car. This is when they first launched it. But then as they added projects and GPTs before that, and then memories, and then even the instructions, which I think they had fairly early for your account, like they have a whole instruction that can mess with the prompt or whatever, or the core prompt that's going in. They basically made it so that now I have the car and I can look under the hood. Right, and tweak it.
Yeah.
So what I love about OpenClaw, and then I'll get back to the point, is that I get to also I also get a mechanic. So if I have a car and it's me and I can open the hood, that's ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. I think ChatGPT actually gives you more under the hood controls than any of the other ones today, in my opinion. But I'm not talking about Claude Code or Core. I'm specifically talking about the core because you're asking about that. That's like the chat work. All that other stuff's advanced. You got to download something, install something, run some terminal command. Come on. So just bananas. But that's a whole different story. I think it'll get better. But basically, with OpenClaw, I have a car, I have a mechanic, and I have me. With ChatGPT, I have me in the car.
Yeah.
And then different degrees of control depending on Gemini or all those. Gemini doesn't give you as much control. ChatGPT gives you more. Claude somewhere in the middle. But with projects and custom GPTs, you get to look at the door, change something out. I used to fix up cars back in the day. I grew up in Southern California. I got my first car when I was 16. Lowered it, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Anyway, so that analogy really tracks for me. Where when people ask me why OpenClaw, I'm like, it can mechanic itself.
Right.
I'm not mechanicking it. I just type some things. It can do something. The whole contact database thing I said, right? I learned a lot about how AI works by building things like that. So I guess my answer to circle it back was first, treat it like Google, try all of them, see what you think. Second, realize that you can mechanic it.
Right.
And one example of that is meta prompting. What that means is if you want to go do research on something and do the deep research function, which again, some people might not even know about, but it's really dope. It goes and does research like a human. That was one of the most incredible things that came out with it, I think, and is still one of the most incredible and is kind of underneath the surface. I will say, let's say I want to study the history of email. I wouldn't just say, hey, get me research on the history of email. No. What I will do is write me a comprehensive deep, this is my exact prompt, write me a comprehensive deep research prompt about the history of email. Then it'll come back, ask me some questions, and then it will give me a better result than what I did originally, or what I tried to do with just a simple prompt, which is actually very much like Googling.
Right. Right.
1 keyword, 2 keyword, 3 keyword question, and we've evolved, right?
Right. I use a lot of custom GPTs, and then I tried using custom Gemini gems, and I do find GPTs I prefer, but I try to tell my friends, if you use ChatGPT and it responds in ways you don't want, you got to do a custom GPT so you can give it the same instructions every time, and then you have access to that. And one shortcut, I don't know if you use shortcuts on iPhone, but I actually made this where you can
go
put
straight into a project, right?
Well,
a GPT.
I have every AI API in here. So
cool.
OpenAI, Gemini, Perplexity, and Claude. I put in my API keys, and I can send one request to all four, and it shows me all four in a row, so I can compare those responses. But like you're saying, you might find you prefer one for this use case and another for another use case. And so if that's step one, okay, let's use it instead of Google or in place of searching. Let's try that. Where do you see the people who are using AI enough to give themselves leverage in the workplace? Because a lot of people, you hear the phrase, AI is not going to replace people. It's going to replace people who don't use AI. It's people have to use AI to help kind of make themselves more valuable or whatever. What is that little bit of leverage that someone can give themselves with these tools to make themselves more valuable in the workplace, to actually get the more important work done? How would you advise someone to that next step?
I think like at some point with personal usage for personal use specifically of AI, you just realize how much you could do at work if you had the tool. So usually you have the tool now, whether it's in Gemini or like ChatGPT itself and you've rolled it out, or even Claude. Cool. Now you have the tool. What would the simplest things are? What are things that are just going to save you time? So, favorite ones, and I used to do this before AI, but it's like I'm mad at someone and I can't I just can't, I'm mad at them. I'm irritated, whatever, right? Something happens, whatever it is, right? Could be small, could be big, could matter, could not. In the past, I would draft an angry email, right? And then I would sit a couple hours later in the morning, rewrite it. So it's not angry, because it doesn't need to be angry. Why do we gotta be angry about everything all the time, right? No, I don't like being angry. I want to fix that. It doesn't happen often, but maybe it used to happen a lot more often back in the day when I was younger. I don't know. And so now I would just put the context in the AI and say, how should I respond? This is what I'm dealing with. I don't even need to write that draft. I don't have to, because the AI can process this for me. And to be frank, I don't use custom GPTs, but I use projects a lot.
Yeah.
I felt like custom GPTs got a little bit too complex for me, but projects weren't shareable early on. Now they are, in ChatGPT specifically. So I actually have a project that's built out with my personality in it, or it knowing my personality more accurately. The amount of value I get from that when I'm stuck or struggling or just want to understand something about how I'm thinking is off the charts, better than a therapist. And it's not like therapy I'm looking for, though, just to be clear. I'm not trying to replace a therapist. I'm saying this machine now understands my personality because of the personality tests I gave it, maybe some things I had it ask me, some things it validated. I didn't just sit there and say, this is my personality, good luck. It was more like, hey, what do you think? What does this mean? Right. Let's talk about it. So that's the other thing. You are personifying something with this whole way that we talk to these things, where it is like a human. So I think some of the stuff that we talked about some years ago now when this first came out that I think folks still could hear is what if you just treat it like an intern? I think that's actually the next starting point. So I think first it's Googling, a little bit of meta prompting so you understand how to prompt, because that's how to Google, how to AI. I think it's prompting first, because you got to get over that hump of the what can I get out of it? How do I talk to it? How do I get what I want out of it? And I think you hit kind of this next layer, which is really about saving time and things like that. Right. And then you can start evolving, in sort of this sort of direction. Right. That's kind of how I think about it. And then the projects come to mind, or things like that, where you want to set something up that has more consistency because you're repeatedly doing it. My favorite, help me set up a project for this conversation, because this is going to happen over and over again.
That's good. That's good. We're talking at an interesting time because OpenAI just shuttered Sora, its video generation app. And so I want to ask you about AI Slop in a second. But one last question on the kind of the business hierarchy. So we talked about entry and mid. For a founder, you called yourself a serial founder before. For those founders and operators, how should they be using AI that maybe they aren't yet, or maybe misusing it? How should the founders at that level be thinking about these tools?
It's funny, I think execs and founders are now one and the same with that question. I wouldn't have said that pre-AI. So first thing I'll say is I think execs and founders from my experience, seem to act the same about AI. And I think makes sense. If you're a manager of any kind, and I think a founder's a manager whether they like it or not, because it's your team. If you're a founder, it's your team. It's almost like the gap I said. You're basically, if you're an exec or a manager and you keep hearing about AI over and over and over and over again, you spend some weekend doing something, whether it's some lovable prototype or Claude code, or like the stuff I've seen from execs is like so elaborate and crazy, like not in a bad way, but it's like these are people that haven't been individual contributors for quite some time. Right. Founders are a little bit different, but it's kind of the same. You're a founder, there's something about you and a bunch of stuff you probably don't do anymore that you used to do, or something like that. It's just a different life, so to speak. So what happens is then you're trying to like get your team to fill the gap, but you see so far ahead because they're on the ground usually doing the work. That being said, when you find a teammate that you're managing or something like that as a founder or exec that's like crazy about it and is just ahead, ideally, you want that person teaching everyone else whatever they need to know, because that's what managers do, right? So I guess the best managers, in my opinion, are staying managers and not getting overdrawn into now I can do stuff, and instead helping their team do stuff. Which means they might do stuff, but like a manager doing the job of someone on their team, that's what I see a lot. And that's fine if that's how they want to run their organizations. But to me, it's more like I'm doing this to show you what's possible, or I'm doing this to disrupt something that we're doing in a certain way. So it's almost like that IC quality of a manager who might not have been an individual contributor IC for quite a while is now coming in and can be an individual contributor, but yet they're a manager. Their role has manager in it, usually title-wise. So you have people
don't get it mixed up.
You have people you manage. It's like, wait, like, and I'm not at all saying you shouldn't do any of this. No, do whatever you want, but just be conscious that you have a team. Your responsibility is a team, and your responsibility is a collective productivity. How do you gain? So for me, the excitement I get when I can put one in Slack is the communal sort of effort. So like every manager out there, if you're doing all this stuff with Claude Code and doing your one-offs and all that, find a way to shove something in Slack and put it in a channel with other people and teach them how to do this stuff. So I call it pair prompting. I'm going to write about it more. And I was talking to a friend of mine describing what I was doing in one of my Slacks, which is a personal one. What I would do is I would bring a friend in, put them in a channel with one of my bots, and I would just show them what's up. And that was pair prompting because the bot was there getting prompted. Both humans were there. And so when I suggest, put it in a Slack, I don't mean let everyone DM it individually first. What I actually mean is find a project where you have had success with the bot, even in ChatGPT, then go make a channel about that project or item or thing, or put it in an existing channel if that's what you want to do, and then work with it on something with the other humans in the company. And so I think that collaborative nature of how we can use AI is now what's like really opening my eyes to like what's possible compared to me using it myself.
Yeah. Side note, which AI app is on your home screen, or which multiple?
Let's see.
Because I've switched mine out, but you sound like maybe you have multiple.
So to be honest, the main AI app is Slack for me now.
Okay.
Because all the bots are in Slack, and separation of stuff is between workspaces and channels and things like that. So I still have ChatGPT on the bottom left corner, which is really easy to access. Ironically, I have Sora right next to it because I got really excited about it. I know you wanted to talk about Sora.
Yeah.
And so I probably got to get rid of it, but it's nice. It's got 12 notifications. It's a really cute logo. And it's right next to the ChatGPT one, and they kind of made it look similar with the same outline. Oh, so cool. I didn't even notice all that stuff, but now you're making me think about this Sora thing and what's on my home screen. But my home screen doesn't change too often, and and I totally get why yours does and what you're saying. But like part of this for me is like they're all in Slack now or Telegram. So I have ChatGPT, Slack, Telegram, Gmail.
Okay, all right. So you mentioned Sora now. We've talked about AI Slop. I don't know if you've seen Kyrgyzstan had a great video on their YouTube channel about AI Slop and how even legitimate research is becoming more and more difficult online because there's both AI-generated content and then content that is mixed, both AI-generated and not. There's prompts, sometimes inside articles and even studies telling the AIs to treat something authoritatively. Is this AI Slop temporary problem? Is this getting worse? Can it be fixed? Where do you stand on it?
Did spam ever get fixed?
No, but I would put spam in a different category. Spam is not portending to be factual information. It might be trying to trick you to do something, like a phishing scheme. But if you see an AI-generated video talking about the history of Rome and it's just espousing random stuff because it was AI-generated, I don't put that in the spam category. I think there's a difference. Do you?
You asked what's going to happen. I said, is spam solved?
So no.
Spam's not solved, right? Like, you're totally right. It's different. But problems like that have, like, things like this, which is abuse, right? It's abuse of a system. Like, let's just putting an extreme hat on. It's abuse of a system. Spam is abuse of email.
Sure. Okay.
So is Slop abuse of AI? It's a philosophical question.
Okay, wait.
Right, right.
Okay,
You see where I'm going?
But one step there. What's the one? Okay, let's make a distinction here, though. Are you putting any AI-generated imagery and video into the slop category, or do you have a separation in your mind as this is useful AI-generated stuff, and then here's the line, and then there's slop after? Do you have a line?
Is all spam bad? Or is all email bad is actually a better question. So the answer is no, not all email is bad. Email is good. Right. Spam is just what we call email we don't like. Let's just put it out there. Spam is what we call email we don't like. Sure, there's phishing attempts, things like that. But if I don't want the email, it's spam. So if I don't want that video, so this is where it gets interesting. If I don't want that video or image or whatever, is it spam? For me? Is it slop? But if I want it, so my point is, like, you're saying there's this, like, degree of slopness, right? It's eye of the beholder. It's eye of the beholder.
Well, let me make a clear example.
Please. Yeah.
So I make YouTube videos, and so there's hours of my face available online for anyone to train anything on.
Yeah.
And someone made a deep fake of me, posted it on TikTok. It got hundreds of thousands of views of me talking about how to get into your partner's text messages. I never made that video. I didn't talk about it. It misrepresented me.
Yeah, it did.
Is that wrong or not?
That's wrong.
That's wrong. I would consider that AI slop, and it is also wrong.
I don't think it's slop, though.
What category would you put that in?
It's more like phishing. So it's like, is phishing spam?
But it's still enabled by AI generative content.
Yeah, but is phishing spam?
Yes, it is spam.
Phishing is not spam. Phishing is phishing. Spam is spam.
Okay.
And phishing gets categorized as spam, right?
So you have phishing, spam, malware, and there's the
and because it's your your likeness, you're saying it's slop, right? Now, if someone watched the video, didn't know you, which is now hundreds of thousands of people apparently, and they did the thing in the video and it helped them. I'm sure it was selling something or something, right? Like that's usually how they are. But let's say it helped them. Was it slop to them? Was it phishing to them? Was it spam to them? Was it actually these things?
But this is where I feel like the problem becomes media literacy as well as spam. Because now, with AI-generated content, there are people scrolling Facebook and Instagram Reels who are not keen to be able to tell the difference and will see an event portrayed online that didn't actually happen. So much so that we now have most phones now being released actually have AI tools built into the camera that you can literally change the photo before you share it on Instagram. And you don't need a computer. You just do it from your phone. Do you feel like there's a line there or should everyone have these tools and then it's on the viewer to distinguish, or should something be done by the companies actually allowing the generative content?
What are they going to do? What are they possibly going to do to stop this? Like, I'm with you. Your experience sucks. Like, no good. I don't know how you could have. I don't know how they would have stopped that. I mean, would they go see it's you and then be like, "Yo, is this you?" Do we got to do that all the time?
There's efforts like C2PA, which is trying to make photography, actually sign it, and this is legitimate, and maybe that'll be built into all the phones 10 years from now.
Great.
Metadata or whatever.
So I think we create problems, then we find ways to solve problems, but we can't do that if we don't create the problem and understand the problem, right? And this problem. These problems with AI are rapidly diffusing at scale across everyone and everything. So I think as a person who builds software, writes about this stuff, talks about it, thinks about it a lot, and tries to make sense of what's going on, I don't know how we can solve it. I'm trying to think very tactically. Like I said, that video comes out, it knows it's you. Maybe it detects it's a little weird, then it hits you up. Or does it just get rid of it? But what if it was what you wanted? How does it know? So this is where the little nuance, Like, we're in a mess. And you're right. Like, if the companies knew that this was going to happen, the question I have is, if the companies knew this was going to happen, should they have done something earlier? I think it's like the question about Meta or even Twitter or X and TikTok and all this stuff. If the companies knew what was going to happen, and we can prove they knew what was going to happen, then the argument of they should have done something about it might hold.
Yeah, and I don't know how you can prove that from the past, but it was on these companies to whether offer these tools to the public masses or not. You know, Google could have said VO is not going to be released, or no, you can't have Sora, the app or the service.
The issue is Google learned their lesson because the ChatGPT moment was stolen from them, basically.
Sure.
According the most, Google won't say this, and everyone's googly, so that's not the case. But if you think about it, the people were gone, they went over somewhere else, and the same exact technology was used that the folks at Google DeepMind, all that invented to build one of the largest consumer products in history that is not Google or not Facebook, right? But Facebook had no, hand in that game. They were worried about metaverse and all that stuff, AR, VR, right? But their obsession with not being dependent on the hardware providers out there, it makes sense why they would spend unlimited amounts of money on that. Like, I get people make fun of Mark Zuckerberg and the company for this, but it makes sense if you're trying to lose the dependency on that and your phone didn't work out, right? And your hardware didn't work out. You're just going to keep going at it because you're trying to have, and they are a company that has distribution. So if they hit the right device, it's on, like Donkey Kong.
Right. You just have to win
right?
once.
And they know that. So they will keep investing in that. Let's not joke around about that, right? Like, they have to do that at their scale, or they're going to be disrupted. And they're a company known to be like, one of their lines when it was Facebook on their book was like something like, if we don't invent the thing that kills Facebook, someone else will.
Right. Yeah.
So just want to caveat and say, you have Google sitting there who's like, oh, kumbaya, we'll let it go. But their kumbaya was more, from my understanding, what will happen if we release this? Like, my understanding of talking to folks over there, their issue with not doing ChatGPT, even though I've heard there were experiments there on all this stuff, is what would happen if we release it? So then it just takes someone else with some other motivation say, no, we're releasing this. Like, right. So I think the issue goes back to my main point earlier, was just like, hey, if they knew, would they?
Right. And
we have our answer. But the problem is technology only goes one way. That's probably the ultimate thing I can say about bubble and all this stuff. Technology only goes one way. And if you're these companies that are creating the bubble, you have internalized that a long time ago.
Sure. So it sounds like AI slop may just be a growing pain, like spam and phishing is to email. It's something that we will have to deal with, but we'll go forward. What might be another growing pain? A lot of people are afraid about AI eliminating jobs. And I actually heard a great interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson. He talked about the Industrial Revolution. It's like, yeah, we don't have as many horse caretakers as we did in the early 1900s after the car was invented, but other jobs are created and people find those. So for people who are afraid about AI, is AI taking jobs? I have a teenage son who's looking into his career. What career field should someone aim at in this moment that would be safe from AI either taking the job or obfuscating the job in the future?
I think the word that comes to mind is access. So if you have access to the tools and you're not using the tools, is it the fault of you or the fault of the tools? I don't know the answer. Again, another philosophical one, right? Sure. But remember, technology only goes one way. So my answer is it's the fault of you. And I know enough folks today that are happy not working on stuff or working on stuff that's very analog, not digital, for these reasons. And we're just going to see a growing minority that are into craft that is analog, but they still might use digital stuff, but they just don't want to be in the world of digital, right? Like, they might even use AI and all that stuff, but they're building something analog because that's their refuge, so to speak, right? So I think we're going to see a lot more of that. I get why. I'm looking for my refuge too, for the moments that I'm not talking to a bot or doing something in my businesses, but I'm a technologist more than anything else. And I think we don't have enough of them running around either. And what I mean by that is people who are using it sharing how to use it, but are excited about the technology, but not excitable about the technology.
Right.
I think there's a very nuance there, right?
That's a good distinction. I'm also curious for my own job. I think even with the rise of AI slop, as a content creator, primarily on YouTube, I'm actually optimistic because I think as there's more AI slop and AI generated stuff out there, that people will look for human connection and want to actually see real human beings either to learn from or to be inspired by or to be entertained by. Do you find that to be true? Do you think that there's still going to be a place for that human creator? Are people going to look for that human connection?
One of the reasons I'm doing live AI sessions or trying to do them every week, it's not part of my job, but I have an audience and a team of folks who help me with things. I actually stopped doing any of my YouTube videos. I was going for really high production quality and we couldn't get the quantity yet. With AI, not AI, all that, just couldn't do it. Maybe one day, but those were a lot of fun. But now I'm focusing my efforts on things that help people in a way that, I guess what I'm trying to say is if you want to meet people where they are right now is lots of AI, not enough human connection. And we were already headed there before AI.
Right.
Like that's why, like, you know, the phone and the dinner and the food and the phones and the kids and this and that, it just adds up, right? And no judgment, it's society. But society was already headed in a way where we stopped caring about things that we cared about before around human connection, because the human connection was almost, you know, faked, artificial, because you could do it through a phone, even though it was a real human on the other end. It still felt more artificial than real human connection, but we got lost in it. And then now with AI, you're not even texting a human anymore. Right. So what happens when you're not texting a human most of the time and you're texting a machine? Maybe you want some more human connection in your life, right? Yeah, or maybe you don't. Like some people love it because they're introverts and that's the game, right? That's like what they've been waiting for. So, you know, I think a lot of these things end up being super contextual, but ultimately, like this idea that like we're going one way, I can't shake that. Yeah. Like you can't. I can't fight that. I don't think people should try to fight it at all. I think we should really just figure out, okay, these tools that are available to us, what do we do with them?
That's good. All right, lightning round. Last 4 questions, rapid fire. Is there a dream AI tool that you want to see built, or maybe that you would love to build yourself? Dream AI tool.
I don't have a personal dream AI tool. I see what's possible, what's not, and how hard it is to build things that are stable. So it'd be tough for me to like be like, oh yeah, I want this. That being said, I can text it and it can use my computer like me.
It's pretty crazy.
Like we're already there.
Yeah.
But we're not there where everything I text it will do reliably. Correct. So my dream would be, I think, a reality at some point, which is it's able to do these things reliably.
I was at CES in January. Lots of humanoid robots around.
Yeah.
Is that even a thing? Is that going to be a thing?
When you start talking to people that know their stuff about it, some of the things that we're trying to get robots to do, humanoid robots to do, are just challenging.
Yeah,
folding that's laundry. Why. Yeah, yeah,
and
that's why a lot of the labs and folks working on these problems are hungry for data, and the kind of data they're hungry for is human videos, right? Videos of humans doing those things, so that the AI can be trained on how to do those things correctly. And that's already not a non-trivial problem, but our best in class right now is train the AI on how this is how we've gotten here, on how humans write, do things, say things, code, whatever you got, right? So that's what's going to happen with this robotic stuff, which is more and more training around all that. Anyway, I know this is supposed to be a rapid round.
Yeah, rapid. No, it's good. What's a product category that you think is going to completely disappear because of AI? Product or product category that's going to disappear because of AI?
That's a cool question. I think Google goes away.
Google the search? Google the company?
Google the search.
Okay, yeah.
And that might sound super obvious, but it just feels like
good.
It goes away.
That's a big one. It kind of dominated for decades.
It truly feels like this is the moment where it goes away as we know it, from put in keywords in a box, and it'll be put in prompts in a box. And so we went from keywords to prompts. And so, yeah, we're not going to see it go away overnight, but we're just going to see it completely erode. And I think Google knows it.
Yeah. Honestly, I think AI overviews kind of shot themselves in the foot. They should have just moved people to like Gemini and let people experience something different, because there was enough AI overview mistakes that I think turned people off. But that's my thought. All right.
In some ways, it's honest AI when you think of it that way.
Well, that's right. A little too honest. people like to do that. What's an AI development or news story that you're watching most closely right now? What are you watching closely?
I think the general theme of local models and what you can do with them and what you can do on cheaper and cheaper machines, let's just say. Even machines that you can buy like directly from China are pretty powerful now if you're willing to go through the work of setting them up. I prefer my Mac, so I'm okay paying the premium at the moment. But like even recently, like just the other day, a company came out and said you can run the NVIDIA and AMD GPUs on a Mac that has silicon, or that's Apple Silicon, not Intel, because you could only run them on Intel's previously. But they just approved a driver that allows you to. So that I think opens up a bunch of stuff. But again, it's a little anecdote of interestingness. It's cool. I'm sure it opens up a bunch of stuff for people that are willing to tinker. Most of the stuff I'm following is on the tinkering side, partly because I'm curious, more so than I'm going to go tinker like that.
Sure. All right, last question. What's the question about AI and the future of work that you think more people should be asking?
How do we work with AI together?
All right. Hiten Shah, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.